Hi, good evening, everybody, and welcome to August 9th, Bethel Board of Education's regular meeting. It is 7:03 p.m. I'd like to call the meeting officially to order. Next will be roll call.
Mr. King,
Here.
Mrs. Reese,
Present.
Mrs. Sebastian,
Here.
Mr. Elam,
Here.
Mrs. Mansfield.
Here.
Excellent. All the members are present. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Well, now that we got the meeting started, we seem to be very popular tonight. Not only amongst the community that has shown up, but the 87 viewers on our BOE meeting already. I think we just crested a record. So next will be 2 additions to the agenda. Does anybody have any additional additions to the agenda on top of what is listed for classified, resignation, certified staff, classified staff? The resignation class, I didn't understand that one, but I'm sure you'll tell us all when we get in there. A through L. Okay.
On the board report, we always do the facilities, but you never write that.
Yeah.
You can start on that.
Yeah. So we'll be doing a facilities committee update as well under board reports. So. All right. We'll go to item, nothing else to add? All right. Go to 3. This is hearing of the public guidelines for addressing the board for public participation. If you have questions regarding our agenda items only, not personal issues you want to come talk to us about, those related specifically to an item on the agenda, does anyone have any comments associated with that? You flip over to. Okay. Back. All right, moving along then, hearing none. We'll start with 4A, which is important dates to know. So we're here on that board meeting on the 9th. Teacher and inductions is August 18th. In-service starts on the 19th, 20 and 23. Elementary open house is the 19th. 23rd is middle school, high school. And the dreaded day for my children is the 24th of August. Happy day, I think, for my wife is the 24th of August. 26th for parents for kids and starting kindergarten. We roll right into the no school over Labor Day, followed by our 7th of September Board of Education work session at 5:30 p.m. And then our facilities. What's that?
Facilities has 5:30.
Okay. Yep. The September 13th meeting will be for facilities will be at 6 prior to the Board of Education. Does anybody have any other dates in the timeline that we need to add?
Doesn't necessarily long timeline, but just note of interest, I think athletic fees are due the 16th of August. So it's kind of coming up pretty rapidly as well.
I believe I saw that on their Twitter feed today.
Everybody's gonna want to get those in because they're students continue to play because it's a big time for everyone.
Middle school, high school.
Yep.
Thank you. All right. Turn it over for treasurer's items requesting board action.
First item on my list of items is the approval of the board minutes for July 6th. Then we have approval of the July bills that were paid and the monthly financial reports. And This month, we have a new interim monies annual report that's due that has to be approved by the board, has to be submitted to ODE, and also has to be submitted to the auditor of state. Anytime you invest in commercial paper, you have to report how much of that investment you had all through the year and how much of that, how many fees you had to pay related to that. So that is what I'm asking your approval for, so we can go ahead and get that submitted to the Auditor of State's office in the Ohio Department of Education. So you did have some commercial paper investments throughout
That's
the
because we
year.
had the certificate of participation for the new building.
Correct. Yes. And then approval of donations for the month of July. That's pretty much all I have for this month.
All right. Motion to place items from the treasurer's report on the consent calendar. Thank you, Lida, for the motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Danny, for the second. Any discussion?
I would just like to say welcome to Tina and thank you for wading through the last week. What did you say today? It's like turning a fire hose on
I
yourself.
said it felt like I was drinking from a
Yeah.
fire hose last week. Yes, we'll get there, but
You know, she's come in at a really critical time, both for the
Crazy.
building project and the school starting and everything else. So we are very, very appreciative of her time and her energy and her efforts. So welcome.
Echo. Yes, ma'am.
Can you maybe just open that file and give a little more detail on the new statement that we're approving?
the interim monies annual
Yes, the
report.
interim.
Okay.
Commercial,
Commercial,
just tell people what they want.
sure. Commercial paper, Baker's acceptance notes is what you invested in with your COPS money, your certificates of participation. I'm sorry, I always abbreviate things, so I apologize. And so this is what we had purchased throughout July 1st, 2020 to June 30th, 2021. And then the fees related to that was $921.81. And all of those investments were held by Red Tree Investment Group. So we were able to get all that information together for board approval. This is not a new thing for the auditor of state, but it's been one of those things that have been buried and they've never really required it. But now Keith Baber's office is wants to see them, and it is in the Ohio Revised Code, so we have to provide the information. So
And is this is portion of the certificate of participation,
right,
so that we could generate the dollars to build a new school building? We have portions of that now. And so we chose to invest it, and this is how it was invested through the.
just parts of it,
parts of
yeah.
it Through
There's-
that investment group.
Right, we had 28.5 million that was invested with Red Tree in order to generate some interest and some additional income there. And so of that 28.5, 1.5 million was, in and out of commercial paper. So
So we made 1.5 million.
I wish interest rates aren't that high, unfortunately. So no, we didn't make it.
Okay.
But that's the quantity that we purchased. So, yeah.
Excellent, thank you.
The last time we received an update on this, our former treasurer indicated that our interest rates weren't as good as what he had hoped. Is that still the same, or is that improved at all?
It's pretty much still the same. Interest rates have not gone up significantly, and the Federal Reserve is talking, we're waiting to see what they do with that. So we're not really looking at a lot of interest income, but something's better than nothing. So, yeah.
All right.
So what have we don't have the entire 28.5 million invested.
We do, just not in commercial paper. Commercial paper is the only thing you have to report to the Auditor of State and the Ohio Department of Education.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
I think that was a great move to try and invest it to earn some money versus us just pulling it in our account, waiting as we build the school.
Correct.
So hopefully it buys down some of our debt that we're not having to pay. Any other discussions? Okay. Could you call a roll? Ma'am?
Mr. King,
Yes.
Mrs. Reese,
Yes.
Mrs. Mansfield,
Yes.
Mrs. Sebastian,
Yes.
Mr. Elam.
Yes.
Item G will be motion to adopt the consent calendar with the items from the treasurer's report.
I'll second.
All right, thank you, Julie, for the motion and Lori for the second. Any further discussion?
Just one more thank you to the boosters for the adjustable basketball baskets that we put in, because I know we discussed it at the work session, but not everyone. Can you talk about that, Mr. Burke, one more time, please?
In our middle school gymnasium, if you would notice to the, trying to think direction wise, it'd be the south end of the gym, there are two wooden backboards. Those two are being replaced by essentially the two backboard standards that are on the main floor. Those main floor backboards are moving to the side, and then we're installing new standards that are able to lower for our youth teams. In the past, they had to put on the, how to describe it?
Portable goals.
Yeah, portable goals that just fastened on the hoop, and if you'd ever played in there or watched the game, didn't use the backboard because it shook pretty. So it's going to be a much better facility for our youth, and it's going to be able to be lower either by hand operation or crane. So thank you to our B-ball program and also the athletic boosters for being able to help put in those $8,500 standards. Again, at no cost in addition.
Thank you. Thanks, Lana, for bringing that up. Any other items?
Well, in addition to that, we should be thanking the boosters for the wonderful hog roast they threw. That was incredible. And for those of you who did the race, this was the t-shirt, and it got wet again today. It was kind of my Soda for Rain traction. Yeah, so, but it was a very nice event. Thank you for those of you who came out, and thanks to all the volunteers who served food and did the race, et cetera, et cetera.
That was a good time.
It was, fireworks were awesome. All right. Anything else? Ma'am, did you go to the vote?
Mr. King,
Yes.
Mrs. Reese,
Yes.
Mrs. Mansfield,
Yes.
Mrs. Sebastian.
Yes.
Mr. Elam.
Yes. Yes. All right, any other items from the treasurer? Okay. Superintendent's items requesting board action, Mr. Bruce.
This evening on the agenda for consideration, item number 6A ties in directly with letter C. So therefore, you'll see that we've had a couple of additional resignations with bus drivers, but Mrs. Rhodes has been able to fill all of our spots with drivers. Many of these names are familiar. They were subs in the past that are now going to be moving up and taking full-time routes, which is good to see. A couple of the people that have driven in the past, or Scott Lawson will be on a route this year, Alan Brandon, et cetera. We are adding a couple of new people. Ron Ritchie is one who has previous driving experience in a neighboring district. He'll be coming over this year as well. So I'd like to thank Mr. and Mrs. Baker for their service. Mr. Baker had been out all year. He actually got hurt in the cafeteria and was out all year with an injury. Hasn't returned, and then I think because he didn't return, his wife isn't returning either. And then letter B is approval of certified staff. We have a couple of our final teaching positions that we are wrapping up right as we enter the first days of school. With us this evening, our special education director, Mr. Cochran, and then also our elementary principals, Ms. Jones and Mrs. Schott. I'm going to let those folks, starting off with Mr. Cochran, introduce new staff member.
Thank you, Mr. Ferks. Good evening, Board of Education. I want to take the time to introduce Tricia Brown as our new high school intervention specialist. Mrs. Brown comes to us with a lot of great experiences, most recently at Springfield High School. She has a transition to work endorsement from Wright State University, a master's degree from Antioch, and she has a bachelor's of science in rehabilitation education from Wright State. And I think she's going to add a tremendous amount to our high school program. She's going to work well with Mrs. Dirks. She has a strong background in building relationships with kids, and she has a strong background in communication with parents. And I'm familiar with Mrs. Brown's work prior to her even applying for the job, and I'm real ecstatic as a special education director to bring somebody of her caliber onto our staff. So.
Thank you.
And you, I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Welcome. And then also here this evening with us, either Ms. Jones or Ms. Shaw. Depending on you guys want to introduce your staff members.
Ms. Jones, and we have Ms. Kylie Mann joining us as a fifth grade teacher. She came to us from Tip City, where she was a long-term sub last year in fifth grade, sixth grade, sixth grade ELA last year. So we're excited to have her. And she already knows some of the members of her team that she'll be teaching. So that's exciting as well.
I'm Cassie Shaw from the elementary assistant principal, so nice to meet you.
That was letter B. Letter C ties in directly with what we had talked about a little bit in A. You can see that are on the agenda this evening for consideration. Not only our bus drivers, but also KitchenAid. So in the past, both bakers served as drivers and also as KitchenAids. So you can see we've made those replacements there as well. And then we also have Alan Brandon on there as a bus driver. And then finally, I'll also let Ms. Jones and Ms. Shaw talk a little bit about the last staff member that's on there as well.
Yes, are you referring to the administrative
Yes,
assistant?
yep.
Yes. So just today, we were lucky enough to hire a new administrative assistant for the elementary office. Her name is Sherry Rudy Bynum, if I'm saying that correct. And she's going to start with us tomorrow morning. So she has a lot of experience through, she was working for the Air Force actually as an administrative assistant for them. And so we're very lucky to have her. She has a lot of experience through the Air Force.
In letter D, you can see approval of leave of absence for a staff member that will be out from August 19th through November 1st for FMLA purposes. I'd like to wish Mrs. Strobridge best of luck with her upcoming maternity leave. Letter E is approval of a supplemental, resignation of a supplemental. It was Courtney Barble, who had served as a staff member who had served as a home instructor. Letter F will tie directly in with that. Trisha Brown, who is on the agenda this evening for consideration as a new special education teacher, will be filling that role of Mrs. Varvel, who will just remain here as a traditional classroom teacher. So I'd like to thank Mrs. Varvel for the work that she has done last year with the additional duties as a home instructor. And I would also like to welcome those other staff members that we have mentioned this evening as well. Letter G, you will see, has to do with another change in supplemental non-teaching. One staff member will be replacing an exiting staff member. Lauren Rudd will be replacing Megan Baker as elementary student council advisor. Letter H is a couple of changes in educational degree statuses. We just received paperwork within the last several days for one of these members. These are folks that have either taken more educational classes to either improve their degree status or number of hours they've taken as well. So that'd be Jamie Strobridge, who is moving from a bachelor's plus 150 to a master's degree. So congratulations to Jamie. And then the one we received most recently in red is Casey Denlinger from a master's to a master's plus 15. So kudos to those folks for continuing their educations. A letter I will be an approval of gate workers' compensation. Bethel Board of Education will approve gate worker compensation rate at $12 per hour for athletic events for the 21-22 school year. This is essentially people that help with site management, but also with ticket takers, more than likely. And then letter J is approval of agreement for facility naming rights. This is one that we talked about at our work session meeting. We're very excited to have on the agenda this evening for the Board of Education to consider the naming rights of our future stadium and also stadium track in particular with concrete sealants. I'd like to thank those folks at Concrete Sealants who have been great stewards to the Bethel community and our township for a long, long time, and the contributions they've been willing to make to help make our Bethel legacy come to reality with naming that stadium track after them. The owners of Concrete Sealants, Howard and Cindy Winder, is that correct, I believe, have also stepped up and wanted to name the athletic field as Bob Heyman Field. Mr. Heyman is a very influential member of the community that's had a big impact on Bethel in the past. And then also I'd like to thank our current architectural firm that we're working with for design of not only our athletic stadium, but also our K-5 building, Garmin Miller, for picking up advertising sponsorship on our scoreboard as well. Letter K, this is one that we approve annually. There's a couple of one attachment, should be two, contract, but also if you scroll down, kind of gives you an idea. So each year we go out to bid for propane. We are in a consortium with several other school districts. It's Bethel, Graham Local Schools, Miami East Local Schools, Hardin Houston Local Schools, which is up in Shelby County, and then Waynesville Goshen Local Schools, which is up in Always County, near Wapakoneta area. Because we're able to go into a consortium, we're able to go out to market and bulk purchasing and get better prices. And so these are the 6 companies that we went out and received quotes from. And as you can see, the company that we've utilized in the past for the last several years, Heritage, came in at the best price per gallon for propane.
Would you scroll back and show everyone how many gallons that was?
Quite a bit.
Yeah. It's on the first page.
104, 500.
104,000.
104,000.
Quite a bit of an investment each year to purchase the propane to heat our buildings. So.
Thank the staff and our students like to eat.
Yeah.
Definitely not optional.
Yeah. Any other questions in regards to the propane? Okay. And then letter L is approval of K-12 tech repairs for recycling. This has to do with old technology equipment that we have inventoried over the summer. Kudos to our tech department as our main tech coordinators arrived relatively late in the ballgame, and the work they've done this summer of going through all of our items and inventorying them and the serial numbers and the model making numbers, and provided them in a document to provide to you folks to show you the number of items that we'll be recycling. Once the K-12 tech repairs comes and picks up those old items, it will then in turn cut a check to the district for whatever dollar amount that those items are worth.
Thank you, sir. Motion to place the items from the superintendent's report on the consent calendar. Thank you, Danny, for the motion. Do we have a second?
Also,
Thank you, Julie, for the second. Any discussion? The only thing I would like to say was thank you to Mr. Cochran and his department. He's already stepped back out, but with the excellent review of his exceptional student programs that he's managing from the state of Ohio and that review that came back. That was more.
And Justin and the principals, thank you for filling all the positions so quickly. What do we still have outstanding? And thank you to all the people who are driving buses, because I know in the past that we've issued.
Well, the good thing is we got our drivers
Yes.
filled. The bad news is we've made up ourselves.
Yes,
So if anybody out there is interested in getting their license, we'll take you. And as you know, we have plenty of available routes when drivers get sick or they're out for medical appointments. And so we have a definite need and a shortage like every district in the state of Ohio does, and probably every district in the country does. I'd be foolish if I didn't think every district wasn't in the same boat we are. But if anybody's out there and wants to help drive either as a fill-in sub route on school routes, or we also look for drivers for extracurricular or co-curricular activities. You have a child that's involved in various activities and you're going to go to the game anyways, you might as well drive the bus and get paid for it. Plus you get in the game for free. So we pay for all the trainings. So the CDL, the background checks, all that good stuff. We have plenty of folks that drive. So we're always looking for drivers. But yeah, we have had some people step up, and we're also always looking for more and more people as well.
certification would be at no cost to the individual.
Yeah, we
Take care of
reimburse
that.
that. Yeah, absolutely. The only position that we still have available is a part-time ELL teacher, 3 hours a day. We just haven't had any luck filling that position,
If you get the high school technology position.
that one as well. But Mr. Swope has a couple of interviews set up for that, so I'm hoping in the next couple of days, but we may have to have a special meeting to hire that person, especially not having a meeting before school starts. We were hoping to have it done before this meeting, but that certification is a little more unique than some others and a little more challenging to find. But he's been able to reach out to the Career Tech Center. He's not here this evening because of his 24th anniversary. So if Mr. Swope is listening, which I doubt he is, happy anniversary to him and his better half.
And I would just also like to thank Damon and all the people who have worked, Damon Smith and all the people who have worked on the facility naming rights. It's a huge deal. We've gotten in, what, over $600,000 now?
Yeah.
So
We most recently just received another $25,000 legacy contribution from a local entity. That entity is we're still working through the contract with those folks, but that'll be coming out here very soon as well. So we continue to get money to come in, and like Mrs. Sebastian indicated, it's $600,000, and thank you to all those community groups that have stepped up and are really trying to help this legacy come to fruition.
I'd just like to say thank you to the departing staff members, but a huge welcome to the new ones for sure. I know especially the heartfelt and very important work that happens with the intervention specialists and what our day-to-day K-12 staff can not do jobs without them for sure. I know how important they were in my classroom, in particular when I was teaching. Welcome to our new 5th grade teacher. That was one of my favorite years. I remember my 5th grade year still to this day. And just big thank you to the new bus drivers. You can't do anything without the bus drivers getting kids here. So that's huge. And congratulations to the people moving up on the schedule. That's fantastic.
So this is just a generic question. So, because we had so many bus drivers leaving, we moved, like you said, the lower subs last year. How do they not get credit for being a sub, or do they have to drive so many hours? From the experience angle?
That's a good question. That would be something I would need to ask Mrs. Rose and then get back to you on. I'm not sure how that works. Yeah, like something in so many days.
Yeah, typically if you work at least 120 days, you get credit towards retirement as for 1 year. So I'm assuming that's what we do here, but I'd have to check with Ms. Rhodes. Yeah.
I just
It's a
wonder,
good-
because I
it's a
noticed
good
they
question.
were all step 0. And
If I can ask
not
her
that that's
tomorrow.
wrong, I just wonder
Yeah.
what the policy.
If I could ask her tomorrow, I'll let you guys know. It's a good question. I'm sure about that. I know with teaching and subs, it's 120 days. I don't know if that applies to driving.
Typically,
Okay.
usually for classified staff. Now, it's also easier to hire them at step 0 and then say, hey, they have some experience, we're gonna move them up, than to say we're gonna hire them at 1, then find out that we have to move them back down. So it's easier to tell somebody you're gonna get more money, rather than try to, say no. So we're waiting on some information to make sure that they have enough days in service and things of that nature.
I just wondered.
I saw the same as zeros as
Yeah,
well.
'cause it just seemed odd to see the 0.
Yeah, I know, Dell and I talked about it, and I said, well, until we know for sure, let's just hire them at step 0, we can always give them a raise, that's easier, so.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? You call the roll then.
Mr. King,
Yes?
Mrs. Reese,
Yes.
Mrs. Mansfield,
Yes.
Mrs. Sebastian,
Yes.
Mr. Elam.
Yes. Excellent. We'll move to the motion to adopt the superintendent's report on the consent calendar. Thank you, Lida, for the motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Lori, for the second. Any further discussion? Call the vote, please, ma'am.
Mr. King, Mrs. Reese,
Yes.
Mrs. Mansfield,
Yes.
Mrs. Sebastian,
Yes.
Mr. Elam.
Yes.
Any other items from the superintendent?
No, sir.
Next up would be board reports. So like to, I didn't note the the vote, so it doesn't have to be a vote.
Correct.
Yep,
Wrong.
Yep. so, for the facilities committee, I would like to remove Rob Wanamaker from the committee and appoint Tina Hageman to the facilities committee. For those that don't know, Rob was our interim treasurer. Now Tina's our current treasurer, so we have our treasurer sit on the facilities. Or we would, it goes hand in hand. Can't build without money. Or fix things. Currently, our work session is scheduled for Tuesday, November 2nd, which is election day. We'd like to move the work session from Tuesday, November 2nd, 2021 to Tuesday, November 16th, 2021. And move our regular scheduled meeting from the 8th of November, that is the Capitol Conference for board members that occurs that week, to Monday, November 22nd. So that would align a work session prior to a regular meeting. We have a motion.
Motion, I don't think we have to.
Well, we've got to have motions for all of these.
Not to change it, scheduled date.
Oh, okay.
But when we voted on those dates, so that's why we were just making it as a motion. So this would just be a motion to change the work session to November 16th and the regular meeting to November 22nd.
Oh, no.
Thank you, Lori.
I'll second.
Thank you, Danny, for the second. Any discussion?
So my only question is, besides, is that leave too big a gap between October and the meeting that happens in October and November? That's pretty late in the month.
It would impact her more than anybody with financials. It doesn't matter to me. It's up to her.
I mean,
End of month closing, so.
I wouldn't think so, no, but I mean, you've got the first week, you've got elections and things of that nature, and then the second week is Capitol Conference. I think it'll be fine, and if we need to, we can schedule a special, but I think we can make that work.
Okay. All right, any other discussions? Could you call the vote, please? Who's second?
Mr. King,
Yes.
Mrs. Reese,
Yes.
Mrs. Mansfield,
Yes.
Mrs. Sebastian,
Yes.
Mr. Elam.
Yes.
This is for us to establish a motion, be it resolved, the Board of Education of the local school district hereby authorize the treasurer CFO to purchase a faithful performance bond for the treasurer CFO beginning August 1st, 2021 and ending July 31st, 2024. We have a motion for that. Thank you, Lida. Do we have a second? Thank you, Julie, for the second. Discussion. For those that don't know, this is to protect actually our school district money with the bond versus us protecting that treasurer. Treasurer actually would, if we initiate the bond, would have to pay that back if there was misappropriations.
Correct. It really protects the district for $100,000. They would bill me back if I lost that one. I hope I don't. I don't want to do that. So,
All right.
I mean, I'm glad they're gonna, like, kind of technically it's a backdate. I'm glad they're willing to do that. And
Yeah.
They said in the email that they would. That's,
yes,
my former insurance self was surprised. Like, I wouldn't have in my days, but good for them. That's good. That's awesome. Because it, great for us.
yes,
Obviously, I mean, if you want to do anything. So that's
right. So I wanted to get it on tonight. And we haven't really done a whole lot in the last 5 days other than try to learn everything. So we should be okay.
Excellent. All right.
We had this previous.
Mhm.
That's probably why.
Right, we had it for Brennan,
Yeah, so
and
that date.
right, right.
Maybe because we already had it. just-
And I have past
They give you a little
experience, so
grace,
that helps.
insurance. It's
Yeah.
rule follower. It's a rule follower thing.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
Any other discussions? Ms. Hageman, could you call the vote, please?
Mr. King,
Yes.
Mrs. Reese.
Yes.
Mrs. Mansfield.
Yes.
Mrs. Sebastian.
Yes.
Mr. Elam.
Yes.
Next kind of goes right along with this one, and that is request a motion to be resolved that authorize treasurer CFO to purchase employee to sign fee and faithful performance policy in addition to the bond covering the treasurer and superintendent.
Almost.
Thank you, Lori. You have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Danny, for the second discussion. All right, pretty much covered it. So,
Oh, I do have one. Do we also have something in place for our superintendent?
Yes,
Okay.
this will take care of
Oh,
both
I'm
of
sorry.
us. Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
So it'll take, because you have that language in both our
Thank you.
contracts, we're gonna hold us harmless. Now, if we commit
Sorry, I
fraud or
didn't-
anything like that, that's different. That's a legal issue. But this is just to protect us from errors, omissions, and problems like
I
that. So-
apologize. I didn't
I
say
know what I
that.
wanted to ask. I
Yes.
was telling you earlier. Do we need or have employees on CPAC coverage for throughout the district for other?
We do, yes, that is part of the liability coverage for all other employees.
Like a regular policy.
Right, because Mr. Perks and I enter into contracts on behalf of the board, we have a higher liability, so we just
Sure.
need that additional
So
coverage.
like food service and.
Correct.
Gate takers. and
Yes.
All that. fun stuff.
Everybody's covered under the other liability insurance, yes.
I can't believe it's 2 years. I've almost never thought that. That's shame on me.
And we had this before as well.
This you did not, no.
I think we're trying to utilize a portion of our current liability. but
Right.
not Specifically to this level.
This was a new law passed in 2019 as well, that it allows you to do both. 2019 and 2020, they've made several revisions to House Bill 291 if memory serves. So you're allowed to have those additional coverages in place. So this will pick up everything that the bond may not pay out. And then all we would be responsible for would be the deductibles, just like any other insurance policy, which is $5,000 or $10,000 per occurrence.
And I did talk to K-12 Consulting and they told me they were the facilitator of both our superintendent and treasurer searches. They told me this is what most districts are moving toward. So I wanted to assure our listeners that this is standard coverage now.
All right,
Great points. Thank you for the additional explanation. Anything else? Ms. Hagley, would you call that vote?
Mr. King,
Yes.
Mrs. Reese,
Yes.
Mrs. Mansfield,
Yes.
Mrs. Sebastian.
Yes.
Mr. Elam.
Yes.
All right, and then we're moving into that addition to the agenda that I mentioned in the very beginning, which is a board report from the facilities committee meeting that was held today.
Okay, so we're required to give a summary of the previous facility committee meetings at the next occurring board meeting. So really quickly, this is what happened tonight. We got a project update from Garmin Miller, Lori Little. We're in the design development phase and we're working to get within budget because prices have gone up. So we had a meeting to discuss which items would be cut. And next is we're going out to the bid early site project in 2 weeks. They're working on the package now. In 2 weeks, they will have the package to the construction manager. And we've submitted a couple variances to the OFCC. Because some of their things are stricter than, what's the other way around?
Other way around.
Another way around.
Some of the township things are stricter than the OFCC guidelines, so we're gonna ask for variance. Next steps are to have a meeting about the stadium and the field house and to look at some additional ways to save money in the mechanical and plumbing area. And the next meeting is September 13th at 6 o'clock. Short words,
Yeah.
the summary.
Very well done. Any other board members?
I had a couple thank yous. We've had a lot of work done here this summer, and I was telling Justin at the work session, I was so impressed with our summer workers, and not just that, but we have 4 student workers, 2 are in technology and 2 are helping Mr. Bird and Mr. Goins. And I come over frequently with my children, and every time I'm over at 8 a.m. in the morning, I see a student out there working, and I'm just truly amazed at the management of that whole program. And I think you and the students are going to be very thrilled with the state of the building in the fall. I'd also like to thank, I don't know how many of you seen, Mrs. Duhan took it upon herself to create a garden. So if you get the chance, stop by and see it. It's pretty neat. And I don't know what's out there now. I haven't looked in a month, but I wanted to thank her too, because that's a pretty, she used her 6th grade classes. And I think there's going to be a class this fall on
Agriculture.
Thank you. I can't remember what it was called. It's a 9-week session.
Yeah.
So I wanted to say thank you to her for the extra time she's put in.
Yeah, thank you. Any others? All right. Just in my comment phase with welcome to the new teachers and bus drivers and all the new staff and new students coming into the new school year, and say thank you to those that have left. Next up is hearing of the BEA president.
All right, hi everybody. I just want to welcome the new staff and administrators. It's a great place to work. Been here many years. You're gonna love it here, right? We as a staff are excited. We're starting to come back to the building, getting in classrooms, putting our stuff up, and starting to think about lesson plans and just getting excited about starting a new fresh start. Hopefully an awesome school year. Welcome.
Thank you, Ms. Brewer. All right, next is item 9, hearing of the public. You click to the next guidelines. So for those that are in, that I have the names, the cards for, just want to clarify that we do not use names of staff or names of students. We can talk directly if you want to bring up specific names to the staff or students, just because those two are protected from conversation. All right. And the time limit is 5 minutes based on our board policy.
Where do you want this? Somewhere where YouTube can see them.
At the desk right here, if at all possible, I'll start with Teddy Sanders. If I said that correctly.
Yeah, thank you. Where do I stand where I'm not on? Am I good here?
Yeah, so far away.
See me? Okay, so thank you all for your time and attention here today. This is my very first time speaking in front of any kind of board, so please excuse me if I have any missteps, just give me some grace on that. So I only have 5 minutes, which, I've got 3 pages here, so I'm gonna have to condense this. I was gonna talk about our boys, and my husband and I, we've been here for 6 years. So I'm just gonna keep going into my 2 main concerns and why I'm here today. So the first one is going to be just awareness of critical race theory. I don't know if you guys are implementing that or are aware of even what that is. I'm sure you probably do, but I want to bring that up. The Gay Straight Alliance board that I saw in the hallway. I don't even look to see if it's out here now, but I took a picture of that last year, and it was a concern for me. And the Be Safe rainbow stickers in the classroom windows. I don't know, I'm assuming that they're rainbow, they are gay pride stickers. That's my assumption. If I'm wrong, I apologize. I also would like to bring up the concern of freedom of choice for masking and vaccination with the condition of mandates this year. So although I do recognize and appreciate the choice to mask and vaccinate, my issue is that the freedom of choice ends with a mandate. So that would be my concern. So going into the first thing is the critical race theory. It is rooted in critical theory, which is a Marxist idea, thought of in 1940s Germany. And basically CRT rejects the methods, aims, and goals of the civil rights movement. And in fact, it calls into question the value of things like equality. Rather, it teaches equity. It also let's see, so basically, they don't want equality, it's not about that, it's about equity. So that's all I'm gonna pretty much say about that. And also, as noted, that critical race theory is critical theory with race used as a divider. Gender and sexual identity can also be used as a divider. The Gay Straight Alliance Bulletin Board and Be Safe Rainbow stickers divide students into groups. On the Gay Straight Alliance Board in the high school, it suggests it's okay to question. This is not a message my boys need to be presented with at school. I would like to see that board or boards and all the stickers removed, or have an equal amount of Christian Alliance boards hung and cross stickers posted outside the doors that read, "Be blessed." It is the school's job to educate on common core subjects, not sexual orientation or religion. That's the parents' job, we believe. Fall 2020, we were all thrown a wild card. Things were uncertain. Data and guidance were ever changing. But it's been almost 2 years now, and we do have solid data, studies available. Granted, it has not been made mainstream to give us the clarity of what is best for our children. Now, I know there are debates on the facts that we could go into all day. We all have feelings based on our personal experiences and or the research that we have done, and I'm not here to change your mind about how you feel personally. I'm not here to tell you what is best for you. I wouldn't dream of making a medical decision for you or forcing anything on you against your will. Why? Because your personal health decisions are not up to me. I remember a time which seems to drift further and further away by the day when health and safety was a personal responsibility. When if a child was sick, their parent kept them home. If a teacher felt sick, they were called off. Basically, we all recognized we had a personal responsibility to take care of ourselves and our children. We realized people get sick and that germs are a normal part of life, one that will actually never go away. Now we are told we are guilty, sick until proven healthy, if you will, guilty of spreading a virus by simply breathing freely. There is a reason that this board has chosen to go back to school this year without forced masks. There is a reason this board has chosen to go back to school 100% in person. There is a reason this board has made the decision to go back to school with no forced vaccines. On the Bethel website, in regards to in-person learning, you state, according to the American Academy of Pediatrics, dangers of social isolation outweigh the risks of in-person classes for most children. On your fall 2021 restart plan with concerns to vaccines, you acknowledge the school district understands this is a personal decision. That was a quote. I am relieved you have rightly recognized we are all responsible for our own health. I am thankful you are rightly honoring our unalienable rights given to us by God. I am grateful you are respecting the civil rights of those that have expressed they have religious convictions that conflict with intervention of experimental gene therapies, particular ingredients, or simply the spirit of fear. And now to the masks. In that same restart plan, you state in part, unless it is mandated by the local, state, or national authorities, face coverings will not be required for students or teachers. I appreciate that this board has granted our children and teachers the freedom to breathe freely and make important medical decisions for themselves and their children. The part that does not work for me is that those freedoms and choices are conditional upon a mandate.
10 seconds.
Okay, in the Bible, Matthew 6:24, NIV reads, no one can serve two masters. Either you will hate the one and love the other, or you will be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. So I'll go to my closing statement to wrap things up. I would like to ask the board to keep a few things in mind. First,
So point of order, so time's up. And based on the fact that we have 3 more, I will grant you an additional 2 minutes.
Oh, okay,
Finish your statement.
thank you. Okay, where was I? Don't start again. Okay, okay, so back to the Bible verse, no one can serve two masters. So if you are not a Christian and do not identify with this, that is okay, because this verse can also be applied in a secular world. In fact, it can be applied right here to this school in this way. Do you serve our children or do you serve the money and the mandates? These mandates will never stop. We know that, they will never stop. The next virus and variant is always looking around the corner. You think this stops if 100% of people wear masks and vaccinated? No. Why? Viruses change, we know this. Are we not only then going to vaccinate or mandate this shot, but all the boosters for the endless variants? Will you then shut down in-person learning, which you have stated carries the known dangers of social isolation? I beg of you, board. Please take a glimpse into the future if you go down this path. Bethel has a real opportunity here. We have the opportunity to be different and not follow the crowd, but rather what we know to be right, what you guys have acknowledged to be right. To recap, how much time do I have?
45 seconds.
Okay. To recap, Bethel School District believes children should be 100% in person because you agree that the risk of social isolation outweighs the risk of being in person. About vaccines, the school district understands that this is a personal decision. You state that face coverings will not be required for students or teachers. You are doing the right thing for our children. You understand these decisions are what is best for our children. Otherwise, you would not have made these decisions. So that is why I'm confused when I read from the Bethel website. It is the intent, basically when I read that our school will follow the guidelines set forth by the state and the leaders and are subject to change with little or no notice. So we will do what is right, normal and best for our children, unless we are told not to do what is right, normal and best for our children. That was it? I didn't even get to my final statement. Okay, well, I appreciate the extra time.
Miss Samples, before you leave, can you please provide an email address?
Yes, sir.
So that responses can be provided. I'll give you a few right now.
Yes, sir.
And that is mandates.
Yeah.
We receive mandates consistently throughout every school year, whether they're federal mandates, state mandates, or Ohio Department of Education. So a lot of the times those mandates come to us that are unfunded mandates that we now have to consume dollars to help do what we are allowed to do, or what the requirement is now driven towards the school, that for us to maintain our educational license, if you would say, we have to follow those. And so for us to operate as a school based on what the actions have been stated by the Ohio Department of Health and the governor gave local decision-making for mandates to have in-person learning to local health department. The local health department is the one that would change any of our current stats. Am I correct, Mr. Burke?
Yes, sir.
From that. So that's who's going to drive any of our changes. But our current policy that return to school is still what we believe is correct, and that is a personal choice of the parents and students or staff members and teachers. If they so choose to wear a mask, feel free to do it. If you choose not to, then don't at this point, because we have the flexibility to say until they mandate it to us, that requires us to do it to continue to have in-person class. Correct?
That is correct. And some folks may ask, if the state of Ohio or higher ups come out and say masks are mandated in schools, what can they hold over you to force you to wear masks? Well, a number of our funding dollars come from the federal government. So for example, the monies that we receive to educate our special needs students are federal dollars. Dollars to operate our cafeteria are federal dollars. And so there's always that threat out there that the government could withhold your state funding or your federal dollars, IDEA money, if you choose not to follow their mandates. Would that happen? I don't know.
So you say it's the local health department then? Is that who?
The local health department was the one that we worked closely with last year when things changed. We had to implement essentially the orders that came down from the Miami County Health Department to all the districts. And that's why you saw many of the districts, all the districts in Miami County adhered essentially to the same guidelines. We would meet with them frequently, once a week, and then we would get updates from them on what needed to be done. And unfortunately, those decisions do sometimes happen relatively quickly. And then they could come out the day before school and say, masks are now mandated. And then you have to roll out the message and inform people and deal with the backlash when people are not happy. It happens. I can tell you that most recently, federal law trumps state and even local law. And right now, federal statute indicates that students are required to wear face coverings on public transportation, which includes buses and vans. So it's kind of odd to think that a child would have to wear a mask or a face covering on a school bus as of August 9th to school. But then when they get off school right now, they don't have to wear a mask at school. And I think it essentially has to do with close quarters and tight areas. But
So the school buses fall under that
federal statute right now trumps that. So, you know, we have student athletes that are riding to golf matches, et cetera, that are supposed to be wearing face coverings. And that's a little bit of the issue that we deal with inconsistency.
Yeah.
Why are we not wearing them in school, but yet we have to wear them on a bus?
Right.
Well, it's that federal mandate. So I wish I had better answers for you.
No, I appreciate the clarity because I was wondering where the authority comes from and who you were following last year. So
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
ours was the Miami County Department of Health.
Okay.
They really, we have an administration meeting tomorrow morning where we're going to go over a lot of our guidelines that you'll be seeing in the next several days, additional updates, back to school updates for this kind of COVID type response to situations now that we have information released from the Miami County Health Department. The health department has now said that if a student or staff member tests positive for COVID, last year, if you were within close proximity, you had to quarantine. Now quarantines are recommended, but not required. So it's the parents' decision on whether they send their kids back to school or not. The school district has to keep an eye on the student, make sure they're not experiencing any symptoms, et cetera. And that's right off the press, new information that people are like, never heard that. Well, we just found out in the last several days. So things are constantly changing. And as they change, we try to gather as a collective group, inform like we will tomorrow, and then roll that information out to our parents.
And some of the other questions you had and statements that you had made also fall in lines with those federal mandates. So that's why I was asking for your email, Mr.
Sorry, I got long-winded.
Perfect. Great. I mean, it's all great information so that we can respond to more of the rest of your questions.
You emailed me already, so you should have mine.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you for your time. Angel Corey, if I said that correct?
You did. I like to try to confuse you guys. Hi, my name is Angel Corey. I actually went to school here. My stepfather who raised me went to school. My stepsister was the Bethel Bee, unfortunately, for 1980 to 1983. I attended from 84 until 89. My brother is currently coaching your Pee Wee team out back, and my granddaughter is cheerleading. So I am very invested, long-term, what happens here. With that said, I'm here to represent my granddaughter, whose name I will not say, like Voldemort. And I also represent an organization called Ohio Says No. We represent the southwestern portion of Ohio as far as standing up for individual freedoms and rights. We don't represent a party, we don't represent a candidate, we represent everyday people and the rights that were given to us by birth and by sacrifice of many great men and women before us. So I'm going to agree with my friend here, Teddy, on a lot of what she said. Thank you. You guys have stood up at this point, and that is much appreciated. As one who was fortunate enough to find my love of history, that took me to Wittenberg University to study history and government. That came here from Mrs. Burton. She's not here, so I can say her name, right? And I believe it was Mr. Scheidler, who recently passed away, who was also a history teacher. They gave me a great love of history, civics, and our rights. A lot of information kids don't get today. I talk to a lot of kids, 13, 14 years old, who don't even know what the Holocaust is. Blows my mind, blows it. It's such a foundation on abuse by governments and failings of governments. A period of time where we will receive things such as the Nuremberg Code to prevent the misuse of governments on people by the implementation of creating human experiments without informed consent. Forcing any vaccination, whether it's a mandate by the federal government, the governor, jumping Jehoshaphat, is an abuse of our children. This is a non-FDA approved, non-tried, non-tested, by the way, protected by the federal government from any and all future litigation. If your child develops a third eye, can't have kids, birth defects, because we've never seen medications do that to anyone before, have we? I mean, right now people are suing because formula is creating long-term effects on children's digestive system to the point kids are dying. You know, Nexium, my ex-husband took. People now have Barrett's disease, which is a form of cancer. So just because somebody says it's okay, doesn't make it okay. Long term, we find out people are wrong. That's why they call it practicing medicine and not confirmed or knowing medicine. It's a practice. And just like anything else, they drop the ball. There's a lot of lessons learned, again, also by history that my teachers taught me. And sociology, which we didn't learn back then in that day. I learned that at Wittenberg. We learned a lot about studies. You know, very interesting studies that taught us about the interaction of human beings, such as how we read faces. You know, we smile. Other than apes, we're really the only species on the planet that smile. Now, sometimes it's not because we're happy or nice. Sometimes it's I'm going to kick your butt. But you know, beware if an ape smiles, it's not always a good thing. But these are important things. And when we mask our children, we're abusing them. We're denying them that basic human interaction. How many of our young children learn to speak by watching someone's face or mouth? There's a lot, you know, we take things out of context in texts and emails because we lose the human side of it. Einstein said technology has surpassed our humanity. When we mask our students, when we mask even our teachers, you remove part of that humanity. And again, I go back to some of the studies. Some of the most famous studies included taking twins. One would go to a loving parent, hugs, kisses, tipples, laughter, smiles, all of that, gentle words, you know, just this wonderful human interaction. The other would be left in a crib, minimal care, change the diaper, put a bottle in there. And they found these kids who got that care, that interaction, that human part of growing and learning and developing, some of them became teachers. They did great things. They built huge empathetic personalities. A large portion of those left in those cribs and cut off from that human touch, that human interaction, human emotion, had learning disabilities. We see that in our foster care children who are oftentimes in that situation. Communicative, let me say that as I'm trying to communicate. Thank you. Being able to communicate clearly because they've lost that.
That was 5 minutes.
I almost did this.
I can grant you 2 more minutes. Be consistent as we've gone through.
Thank you. But they lose out to the point, and even at the worst case scenario, these children die because failure to thrive. It is that important. And I'll tell you, one of the largest experiments ever conducted on this was by a man named Joseph Mengele. And you can look that up, feel free to. We don't have time to play those games with our kids. And I understand mandates. And again, I told you, I represent a group called Ohio School. One thing about Ohio, we are a home rule state. That's a lot of power for a community to have. And you all hold a very precious, important position. It's not just to pick and choose what book we buy and where the money goes and where we're getting our propane. It's to protect these kids. And long term, you have to really be able to weigh those benefits. But what's beneficial? What are the long term effects? We continue to dehumanize the experience of childhood. We will pay for it. We're going to pay for it quicker, sooner than later. And again, I ask you, you say you'll have to do what somebody else tells you. I'm going to go back to no, you don't. You simply say no, you can do the right thing. Money is a great motivator. And I've heard this guy in the White House has said, if you don't do as I say, I'm going to keep your funding. We're about here in Bethel. Ask these parents, ask these taxpayers, ask the people who pay for all these services you vote on and these salaries. Do you want, you know, are you losing a little bit of money? And yes, my granddaughter's in special ed, so I do see a value on that. But I also know that my sister, who has reading problems, graduated from here without special ed. What is necessary is her health and her development and that ability to experience life and the human emotions and interactions that are required. I'm asking you guys to do the right thing, no matter who mandates it. These parents, this grandma, this alumni, I mandate that you protect these kids and do the right thing regardless of a dollar bill. Don't prostitute yourselves out for our kids. It's not that important. That's
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you.
I would say, someone in rebuttal is, we were personally, no one on the board receives any benefits from the federal side of that.
I'm at the school. I apologize. I know you guys, trust me, I have a lot of value and I thank you as I started with. I did not mean to insinuate
No,
you did.
you're good. I was just going back to that, there's several other mandates as well. That although it's a house of home rule state, the portions that are covered are school districts. Cities, villages, and townships are all allowed to establish their own mandates and can make their own choices against the state of Ohio or do their own thing under home rule, except for us.
Could that prevent you from protecting one of these children in the long-term effects of what's going on? I mean, and that's a sincere question that I would ask all of you. Is that what that little bit would prevent you from protecting one of the most important things in human development and sociological development? And that's the state of being human. We've already taken away so much from them sitting on TV, playing video games, so the last year and a half of not interacting. What else can we take?
So I will go back to our number one mantra, part of our statement as a board of education and our leadership team and teachers is the safety, security, and educational environment is provided with excellence to all of our students. And that is our number one goal.
May I ask, will you guys accept religious exemptions, medical and religious exemptions, should somebody try to bribe you or threaten you or withhold funds from you to inflict a mandatory mask or vaccination mandate?
I would say that we would seek our legal counsel before we would answer that question. So, I mean,
In case I am an ordained minister, and I will make sure everybody gets one. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Next is Anthony Vivardi, sorry, thank you. All right, go ahead, sir.
All right, like you said, my name is Anthony Berardi. I'm here representing my daughter. So we recently sold our house and had to move just slightly out of the school district due to the current housing market and the way the house sold, the time frame in which we had to move, and the inability to secure housing within the district. So my daughter, my family moved here in 2015. We relocated from Youngstown due to my job. And my oldest daughter graduated from Bethel last year. She also was, captain of the varsity cheerleading team. My youngest, who I'm here about, lettered in volleyball last year. And I'm just here to ask, sorry.
When it comes to our kids, it just brings it right out of you.
Just here to ask for an exemption for the open enrollment. We found after we could not secure housing in the district that the open enrollment rule had changed and has been limited. Unfortunately, she's a victim of something that is out of her control. We are looking to come back to the district. We did end up having to move into a rental with a 1-year rental. It is literally 30 seconds outside the school district. We are actively going to be looking to come back to the school district so she can graduate from Bethel. I've heard the term legacy a few times tonight. So with that, as I stated, her sister graduated from here. They've invested here with their friends, and really all I'm asking is for that exemption. I did reach out to one member of the board, was directed to go to the website where I could see the, what you call it, the ruling. Part of the ruling says that we are at capacity. To that, at the time that ruling was made, my daughter was part of your capacity. So your capacity for students already included her in that number. With that, I mean, I don't really have much else to say. It's pretty straightforward. I don't need any extra minutes or time.
What grade?
She will be a junior.
Junior?
Yes. So with that.
Part of that was also looking at class sizes, number of classes, how many students are in that class. That's why I was specifically asking what grade she was in. I couldn't remember if she was a junior or sophomore.
Yeah, she's going into her junior year.
Because your other daughter graduated with mine. So.
Yes, she did.
From that, so we'll take that under advisement. And Mr. Ferks has your contact information.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. To see if there is any, student numbers. What are we projecting? Do we have the capacity?
Well,
So that's the key.
and part of the ruling was that siblings of existing open enrollment students have consideration to come in. She's a sibling of a graduate, an alumnus. She, is also a former student. So kind of feel like there are already built-in exemptions for people who don't already count in the number, with especially that sibling aspect of it. And like I said, she counted in the number just on the right side of it when the ruling was made. So.
All right. So Mr. Ferks will get back with you with regards to his decision.
Can I ask you a question?
No, good.
So I have a question. You
Sure.
don't have to answer this publicly. Maybe you can send it to Mr. Firms. You said you have a plan to kind of come back here. I know you have a year lease. Maybe you could share that plan as part of the.
Yeah, find a home that's for sale.
So that's the
That was
entire
tough.
plan.
That was a tough part.
'Cause-
It happened, everything happened very quickly. As soon as the house hit the market, it sold immediately and had a very short time frame, and it was very hard to secure something that we could, make arrangements to move into. Unfortunately, we had to, like I said, choose a rental, and even at the Redwood, rentals down here, nothing was available within the time frame before we had to move out. So we had to go to Parkview, which is just on the other side of the Y, because their availability was there. And it didn't seem like that. I don't want to say it wasn't that big of a deal, but it didn't seem as much of a concern because we thought we could come back to the open enrollment until the lease was up, and then we moved back into the district.
Excellent.
Well,
Thank you,
thank
sir.
you for your time.
Appreciate it. Next is Scott Taylor.
I appreciate the opportunity to meet you all. Actually, I'm from Miamisburg. I'm a close friend of Teddy. I'm part of the same organization, actually called the Ohio Patriots Alliance. We're a bunch of citizens. We're concerned about what's happening. Our alliance is mostly our friendships and our bonds with each other. Several of us have done different things. I've gotten very involved in working on voter integrity. In fact, I had an opportunity to work with a new law we're trying to push in the state of Ohio. One of the features of this is requiring an ID for all mail-in ballots, that you actually have to make a photocopy of your ID on all mail-in ballots. I'm pleased to work with different people in the state of Ohio, Laura Rosenberg, and these fine people who have already spoken to you. I hold them all in great esteem. I also hold you all in great esteem. I really appreciate you explaining about federal mandates and how they're affecting us. It seems that as the central government gains more power, it just mandates what they feel. Instead of looking out for the needs of our children, we allow politicians to make decisions for our kids. And that upsets me as a parent. I like statistics. I know that there's been a total of 7 students in the entire state of Ohio die of COVID-19. I do know that students tend not to get sick of it. I do know that students tend not to transmit it. I do know that per Pfizer, vaccines are FDA approved only for emergency use. Only for emergency use. Did I say only for emergency use? I don't think anyone should suggest that a group of young growing individuals ever take an experimental vaccine. There's been references to certain people in history that would actually do things. And I appreciate the difficult challenge you have with dealing with mandates that perhaps in some ways get in the way in your ability to put the rights of children ahead of bureaucrats. Some of the interesting things is that it seems that there's an organization called America's Frontline Doctors. It was founded by a woman that was a doctor, and she was very successfully treating patients with hydroxychloroquine. It's like an aspirin. By the way, there's no profit in hydroxychloroquine. The federal government's giving out billions of dollars for vaccines. And she was told by her doctor, the administrator, that I don't want you prescribing that. They got in the way of the doctor-parent-patient relationship. And it's so interesting. I always grew up trusting my school system to make decisions. Partnership. Now we have problems with mistrust. So many people are being divided, and I'm so glad I came here to meet you all because it helps strengthen my understanding in my own school system, this one, about how close we are. But I really want to talk about masks as well. I've already talked about the abuses of, by the way, it seems like they suppress any information that counters a narrative. In fact, even the White House says we're working with social media to eliminate and dispel fake information. I guess if a bureaucrat can decide what's medically true, they get to decide. But regarding masks, I personally think masks are child abuse. The reason why I say that is that one thing I know for sure is maybe it makes people feel better. But if I go to Menards, none of those employees are happy about having to wear a mask. I do know that they can reduce oxygen levels in your system, which can cause brain damage. I do know that it's a great place for bacteria to grow on. And imagine your body's trying to clear itself of bacteria and it catches on a cloth in front of your face. I do know that kids like to be able to see other people's faces. That's how we bond friendships. I heard a study that the Arabs 2,300 years ago learned that if they masked their slaves, they'd be more submissive. And in some respects, some cultures want their women to be masked. In a way, it breaks their personal identity down and makes them more submissive. And I think that is abuse of women as well. So my really question about it is knowing that masks are abusive to children. In a way, it sounds like if the federal government says that we're going to mandate this, and if you don't do what we tell you with masking, we're going to take away funding. I know money is important, but that's a question. Do we put the needs of our children ahead of money? And do we ever stand up against bureaucrats that are simply trying to seize power versus looking out for the interests of our students? I think I finished within 5 minutes. I know that I'm a Toastmaster with Toastmasters International. Usually it's 5 to 7 minutes. And it's interesting, I haven't seen any timing lights, so I guess I can stop speaking because we're about 5.
Yep. Wow.
It's functional.
That was very functional. And I have one statement that kind of covers everybody. But Mr. Berardi, yeah, sorry. Is the fact that I would state that we here in Miami County, but Bethel School went against the norm last year when we rolled out the 100, in learning, in classroom, in person, right off the bat from the start of the school year, with options for online for any parents that made that choice for their child. And we stepped forward with that program, and I think that we'll see long-term benefits from that push against the norm because of the statement that was read by you, Samples, with regards to the fact that in person with us is a better environment and a learning environment for the advancement of our children. But to caveat that is the only way that happened. Wasn't us up here making decisions, right? It was because our teachers and our staff believed in being in person with our students. They took on the risk, some that did have some complications, still came in to drive that educational environment for our students. And so, they're the ones that really helped us provide what was provided. So I thank the teachers and our staff and our administrators for all that they have done to keep us going in the direction. We have any comments or questions on YouTube?
No, sir.
Excellent. Can you, executive session? Does anyone have reasons to enter into executive session? I know that we have item number 1 for executive session. Does anyone have any other items? No?
I think that'll cover probably, all the same thing.
Okay. Do we have a motion to enter into executive session?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Julie. Do we have a second?
Awesome.
Thank you, Lana. Any further discussion?
I'll just say, vote.
Yeah. Based on what I know with regards to item 1 in executive session, there's not a matter that would need to be voted on after executive session at this time with the information that there is no expectation of further board action. Any other? I'd like to thank everybody for coming and sharing your thoughts and questions with us. It's been a while, probably 2 years since I've seen this many people show up. So thank you all for coming. And ask for vote.
Mr. King,
Yes.
Mrs. Reese,
Yes.
Mrs. Sebastian,
Yes.
Mr. Elam,
Yes.
Mrs. Mansfield.
Yes.
All right, we'll enter into executive session at 8:24 p.m. Minus 5 minutes for or plus 5.
Your timekeeping is going.